You wake up one morning. Nothing looks different. Your bank balance hasn't changed overnight. Your salary's the same. But something quietly happened. A small part of your money disappeared. No email, no receipt, no bill in the mail. Yet every single year, the system takes a slice of your wealth. Not through taxes you vote on, not through a fee you agreed to, but through something far more subtle, an invisible tax. And almost nobody talks about it. Imagine you worked hard and saved 100,000 rupees. You didn't gamble it in the stock market. You didn't spend it. You simply saved it. Now fast forward 1 year. You still have 100,000 rupees in your account. Looks safe, right? Except the money quietly lost value. If prices rise by 6% during that year, the things that once cost 100,000 rupees now cost 106,000 rupees. Your money didn't shrink, but its purchasing power did. In other words, you just paid a 6% tax on your savings, and you didn't even notice. Most people think inflation just means prices going up, but inflation is actually something deeper. It's the slow dilution of money itself. Think of money like a pizza. If there are 8 slices and you own 2, you control 25% of the pizza. But if someone secretly cuts the pizza into 16 slices while you still own only 2, your share just dropped to 12.5%. You didn't lose slices, but everyone else suddenly has more. And that's exactly how modern money systems work. Today, money is not limited by gold, silver, or physical scarcity. Most of it is created digitally. When governments run deficits, when central banks stimulate the economy, when commercial banks issue loans, new money enters the system. Not printed in trucks full of cash, just numbers created in databases. For example, during the global crisis in 2020, central banks around the world created trillions of dollars in new money. The U.S. Federal Reserve expanded its balance sheet from roughly $4 trillion to nearly $9 trillion in just 2 years. That's one of the fastest expansions of money in modern history. But here's the strange part. When new money enters the economy, it doesn't appear evenly everywhere at once. It enters through specific channels first. Banks, large corporations, financial markets, government spending. These early recipients spend the new money before prices adjust. They buy assets, they buy land, they buy stocks, and then the ripple spreads outward. Eventually, the prices of houses rise, stocks climb, groceries get more expensive, rent creeps upward. By the time the average person feels it, the system has already moved on. Economists sometimes call this the Cantillon Effect, but you don't need the term to understand the reality. The people closest to money creation benefit first. Everyone else pays the cost later. This is why inflation often feels confusing. Official numbers might say inflation is 5%, but housing rises 15%, education rises 12%, healthcare jumps even higher. So people start asking a simple question. If inflation is only 5%, why does everything feel so expensive? Because inflation isn't just about consumer goods. A lot of new money flows directly into assets. Stocks, real estate, financial markets. Over the last few decades, global stock markets exploded in value. Property prices in many cities multiplied several times. Some of that growth came from productivity and innovation, but some of it came from something simpler: more money chasing the same assets. And here's where the invisible tax becomes powerful. Inflation quietly transfers wealth from savers to borrowers, from cash holders to asset owners. If you keep your wealth in cash, inflation erodes it. But if you own assets like property, stocks, or businesses, rising prices can actually benefit you. In other words, the system subtly rewards debt and ownership more than saving. which sounds backwards. For decades, we were told, save money, be responsible, avoid debt. But in an inflationary system, debt can behave strangely. If you borrowed 10 lakh rupees today and inflation cuts the value of money in half over time, you still repay 10 lakh rupees, but the real value of that repayment is smaller. Inflation quietly shrinks the burden. That's one reason governments themselves carry massive debt. The global economy now holds hundreds of trillions of dollars in debt, and inflation helps slowly erode that mountain, not by paying it off, but by diluting the value of the currency used to repay it. Of course, inflation isn't always deliberate. Sometimes it emerges from supply shocks, wars, energy crises, or economic disruptions. But modern systems also rely on a delicate balancing act. Too little inflation can stall growth and trigger deflation. Too much inflation destabilizes economies. So central banks aim for a target, often around 2% per year. That number sounds small, but over time it adds up. At 2% inflation, money loses about half its purchasing power in roughly 35 years. At 5% inflation, it happens much faster, around 14 years. That means a young worker saving cash today could see half its value vanish by the time they reach mid-career. Again, without any bill ever arriving. And here's the irony. Most people work extremely hard to earn money, but very few spend time understanding how the money itself changes over time. We learn how to make it, we rarely learn how the system quietly reshapes it. Because the invisible tax doesn't feel like a tax. It doesn't trigger outrage. It doesn't require a vote. It just slowly, quietly reshapes the economy, year after year. So the next time prices rise, or markets surge, or governments announce new stimulus, a deeper question sits beneath the surface. If money can be created whenever the system needs it, and inflation slowly reduces the value of what already exists, then the real question isn't just how much money you earn. It's something far more uncomfortable. In a world where money can be endlessly expanded, what does it actually mean to store value at all?